Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I am your host. And today I have an international rock star on the show. Like he may even break out the electric guitar and play a riff or something. I'm kidding. I don't know if he plays guitar, but we're going to find out. So if you would go ahead and share this out, I would be very, very grateful for that. Stand by. We have the one and only Michael D. Butler on the show this morning. And we're back. Let me bring Michael on. Michael, welcome to the show.
Ken, thanks. It's so great to be here. Epic. I've heard so much. And I mean, my goodness, you've got a great show. It's good to be here.
I'm so honored to have you on. I think you're one of those hidden gems that I did. Is that bad to say? Like, you're a pretty big deal, man. You've done some impressive things, and I'm actually excited to have you here.
Well, I'm just a kid that grew up on the farm in Oklahoma with my library card maxed out and stuttered as a kid and had big dreams, and God's been very good to me. So good to be here, buddy.
That's awesome.
Talk to you.
You know, I started this show. It's just shy of 4 years now. And it was to help people get unstuck in life. And I would imagine that along your journey somewhere you've hit some roadblocks. And
oh yeah, more than one. I've had to be triage. You go through a divorce, you go through raising children, you raise 4 children. I mean, you're gonna hit speed bumps. I think that the difference between really realizing it, and I'm in the middle of it. I'm in my 50s. I'm 53. I think I'm a little bit older than you, but life is a journey. I told my dad when I was 7, I'm gonna live to be 120, and he's like, "You get 70 or 80 years, son." And my point was, I want to make every moment count because I feel like I have had setbacks. Most people have had setbacks, but the people that really succeed in life, the people that really leave a legacy and make something happen, are the people that keep swinging the bat. They're the Tiger Woods of the world that, they have a car crash and they come back. They have a back surgery and they come back, and they just keep coming back. And I think sometimes the winners are not always the people that are first at the finish line, because I'm a marathoner. It's not always the people that are the fastest, but it's the people that keep going. And so you inspired me to do that with your show, with your book. In fact, thank you for this, Walls of Wisdom. This is epic branding for your name. So everybody brand your name, put your picture on the front of the book, because branding is important. So Ken, thanks for the book.
Hey, I'm and you guys that are watching, you'll understand the true meaning behind what I'm getting ready to say. I'm honored that you took the time to read my book, man. It's like a seriously great honor, because you've been involved in a little bit of that. So, and we're going to get to that. So talk about where you were born and raised.
I grew up on the farm in Oklahoma, and I tell people that I grew up before Ritalin because I was the kid that I would have been the poster boy for Ritalin. And you might feel me on this because I was throwing rocks through the windows of my 7th grade recess, and me and Timmy Everett were in the principal's office and trying to explain to the principal why we were busting windows. And for me personally, is I just like the sound of the crash that the glass made. And I was one of those kids that would have been put on Ritalin. I was always a little edgy, a little creative, but I stuttered as a kid in the first 6 years of my public school from 5 to 11. Even though I was naturally outgoing and gregarious, I found myself becoming an introvert. But one thing that really helped me, Ken, when I was 11, there was somebody, I don't remember who, gave me a book, an 11-year-old kid. This kid had written a book, and I'm out there on my parents' cattle farm. We're on the farm 9 miles out of the country in a small town in Oklahoma. And I'm starting to dream again because I'm reading this kid's book and I'm seeing these planes fly over, and I'm saying, one day I'm going to be in these planes. I'm going to fly all over the world and speak to everybody all over the world. Well, it's gotten better than that. How could it get better than that? Is my clients have been flying all over the world and speaking all over the world. The women, the men that we've published 620 books in the last 4.5 years. It's been a fun ride, Ken, but I know things happen when you set your intention, but things happen when you accept the gift, say yes, and then you got a great team of people around you. It's been a lot of fun.
So you I mean, you went to school, high school, all that in Oklahoma?
Yeah,
That,
I did. I did. In fact, I gave my first speech when I was 12 years old in English class. I gave a speech on meteorology, and this was a life-changing moment because up till then, I had been working with a speech pathologist to overcome the stuttering. And I went in Mr. Kelly's English class on the first day, and he said, 6 weeks from today, you're giving a speech. And all the kids in that class kind of freaked out for a second, and I got excited. I got excited because I said, for the next 3 or 4 days, I'm thinking, it's got to be a demonstrative speech where you got to show us how to cook something, fix something, make something. And I said, weather forecasting. I wanted to be a meteorologist, and my parents bought me a weather forecasting kit. And I came into the class 6 weeks later, and I don't know, I probably only had 6 or 7 minutes. It felt like 2 hours, but listen, I nailed it. And I got an applause, and it changed my life. I knew at that moment I either wanted to be a meteorologist or a minister, because those are the only two careers you could get paid to speak every day.
So now, if you're honest though, did you really think of the word demonstrative at 11 years old?
Well, I wouldn't have if Mr. Kelly hadn't told us what that meant. He spent the next 6 weeks teaching us how to give a speech, and he basically said, tell me what you're going to tell me, then tell me what you want to tell me, and then in conclusion, tell me what you told me. And that changed my life, and that's how I've written all 7 of my books, and that's how I've given 3,000 paid speaking events. Is I simply in 5 minutes can construct a speech. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Wow, that's incredible, man. So you graduated high school. Did you go to college?
I did. I went to Bible college and seminary. Ended up going into the ministry. Actually gave my first sermon for the youth group when I was 15 years old. And
oh my gosh.
I remember my parents let me go home from school early that day to study my content. And so I delivered that sermon. I realized this was kind of fun. I think I might want to do this again, because my whole goal was to motivate, to inspire, to educate, or my call to action was, stand to your feet, come to the front, let's pray, or whatever the call to action was that day. But for the next 14 years after Bible college, I would speak to 100 children every Sunday morning, 100 teenagers every Sunday night, and then 200 adults every Wednesday night. So I always had to be thinking, about new content. I know you're the content king, you're the go live king, so you're all about content creation and packaging. So I was thinking about packaging pre-internet, because I'm thinking, hey, these are 6 to 9-year-olds I'm speaking to. I can't just bore them. I've got to pull a rabbit out of my hat or light something on fire. And that's the reason I don't have any hair today. So it's I learned a lot during those years. The fire department was probably called out more than once during those years.
Oh my gosh. So you graduated from seminary school, and then you went directly into the youth ministry, or were you a pastor of a church? How did that pan out?
Well, it was actually cool, because I went to work with a church in Arkansas for a couple of years. My first year was before my sons were born. I was married, and we were in a church. My wife and I were in a church in Arkansas, and I just loved it. I loved the people there, and it was a fabulous time. And after about a year, my dad, who was a pastor, who actually became a pastor about the time I went into the ministry, he had worked for corporate all his life. He took an early retirement because he felt this call to ministry, and he took this church in Oklahoma. He had grown it from 50 people to 170 people, and he said,
Wow.
I need some help over here. So I came over there in the next few years, was able to help him, and we were able to grow the church together, and just being able to work with my dad. So what that meant when I started, that meant I was the janitor. It meant I was the groundskeeper. It means I was in charge of staffing for the nursery, the children's church. But that church really began to grow and do well and prosper. And so it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of ministries that came out of that church that are still pastoring and evangelizing and doing great work today. But I realized something during that time. I realized that people are the same everywhere. I began to travel and speak, and as I traveled through churches throughout the South, through different countries, even preaching and speaking in different countries, I realized people are the same, that people basically, they want to provide for their family. They want their family to be happy and secure, and they want the best for their kids. And I actually considered going into counseling, Ken, but I think you'll appreciate this. I have a feeling you might be afflicted with the same little ADHD thing I am. I realized that with my counseling hours for ministry, I could have been a therapist, but I said, who wants to sit in an office all day and listen to people's problems? So I kind of evolved into the publishing, and it was a fun evolution, but people want the same thing. They want to succeed. They want a product or service that's going to help improve their life. And you've obviously given them that with Breakthrough Walls and everything you're doing. So I ask myself every day, every new year, how can I provide value? How can we serve more people? And it's been a fun ride.
So so you're no longer in that church. By the way, I got to bring this up. Arkansas, we went to my wife has family in Arkansas, and we went to a wedding in Arkansas, and I think it was, I don't remember the exact month. It seemed like it may have been right smack dab in the middle of July or something. I don't know, but we go to this wedding, and I'm wearing a sport coat and really terribly bad idea, by the way.
Bad idea.
People don't realize it's very
humid in Arkansas,
and it was an outdoor wedding. So it was, Michael, I've never been so hot in my entire life. And finally, my wife's cousin, the father of the bride, comes up to me, he goes, "Why are you wearing that sport coat?" And I'm like, he goes, "You're not in the wedding party, dude. Take that off. You look miserable." I said, "I am miserable. You got a t-shirt handy? Because the one I have on soaked. That's hot down there."
Well, we want to thank him because you're here today, because it gets very hot and humid in Arkansas. My oldest son was born there, and I love the heat, but I tell you, it does get humid.
It gets so hot, it's miserable. But so you were in the ministry. How long were you in that deal there?
So I did that for 14 years, and I mean, quite frankly, helping people get their stories out to the world, working as a publisher is like being a pastor, because when somebody writes a book, a lot of times they've been through something, so it's a part of their healing, their cathartic therapy, their journey, where they're going to write these letters of forgiveness. And, they probably won't mail them. They might just ceremonially burn them or throw them into trash or something to get closure. But it's a part of the forgiveness. But 99 times out of 100, it's not something you want to publish, because memoirs are the slowest moving category of books. So at the end of the day, people don't really have the bandwidth to read about tragedy and trauma that's happened, because they're dealing with their own pain. But if you can give me one takeaway of what you learned during that trauma, you can give me 4 things or 3 power pack keys that you learned during that divorce, that bankruptcy, that loss of a child, or whatever it was, that's what people are looking for, is that one takeaway.
And Debbie, I love Debbie. She's got great questions, but I think we're moving into that. What was it? What was the thing? She said, "How did you learn and start into publishing?" What was the catalyst? What was the thing that made you go, I'm going to get out of the I guess it's a shift. Like you're telling stories of the Bible and saving people, and and then you get into publishing and helping people tell their stories, which is a
Yeah,
little different.
you know, it's a great question, Debbie, and I get asked that a lot. And there's basically two things that were happening, because it wasn't a straight line for me. It was always taking that next step, and you don't always know, right, what you're going to be doing 5 years from now. It's New Year's time. Everybody's asking about resolutions. Where do you want to be 5 years from now? And we don't always know. And this one thing this pandemic has taught us, it's taught us to live by faith and
Right.
live day to day. I mean, you can't live 10 years into the future. It's great to have a plan and a strategy and all that as a family and as a business, but
Yeah.
the way I evolved into that, when my marriage didn't work out, I could have stayed in the ministry, but with 4 young kids, Ken, I just needed a revenue source. And the first thing I found that I loved being a part of was the direct sales industry and network marketing. Because I loved, I like yourself, a natural salesperson who always had a bent for marketing. And I was telling my teams during that time to write a book, adopt a nonprofit, and get on stage. And so I primarily had women in the network marketing and direct sales industry. That the way that evolved into publishing was this: we were doing marketing for our team members. This was before anybody was on Facebook. Primarily the internet was young and everybody was on MySpace. We were helping people sell, our downline, our team sell health products on MySpace.
Wow.
And we were marketing an author back then. And we actually had an author who wrote a book on human trafficking named Pamela Kennedy Chestnut. Her book, More Than Rice, got optioned for a film in Vancouver, British Columbia at Title Card Pictures. They optioned it for a short.
Wow.
Because I was tweeting out the book one line at a time over a 3-month period. And so it got a movie deal. And I started looking at the publishing space. And, you know, like a lot of people, I thought that Kindle and Amazon had killed publishing. I thought the ebook had killed publishing, but I realized that readership was still up globally.
Yep.
And even since then, the last 3 years, that print books have made a comeback over ebooks, and that people were reading, not in the US, but they were reading globally books in English more than ever. And when we had that author get that movie deal, I looked at publishing. Fast forward 3 years later, I was in Vegas and on the West Coast consulting with a publishing company, and really took a look at the industry and what was needed in the industry. And it really became my passion. We were able to help several other authors from that get their books into global distribution. And I realized there's a lot of moving parts in publishing, but when you help that person get the stage, get the media, get the microphone, and we've had our clients on Fox News, CNN,
wow,
you know, Dr. Phil, many others, Good Morning America. So it's been a fun ride just to see that in their life, because they wrote the book just to mark it off their bucket list. But when you get on stage and you sell your program that's tied to the book, and you realize it's not just a $20 book, it's literally changing somebody's life. You're teaching them how to start a business. You're teaching them how to get clients, how to have a workshop, or like you can, you got a whole vault of content on the back end that people can subscribe to and learn how to do stuff and start businesses and grow.
You know, I think that it's interesting that because you know that I've helped a few people write their books, and I'm nowhere near on the level you've done, but it's really fun to watch the process and watch somebody who's never written a book, like, you know, all of a sudden they're a published author, they're a best-selling published author. And it's really a cool thing to watch the lights come on for them.
Well, and they really realize at that point when they do their first podcast interview after they've launched the book, and people are not only asking them for their books, but they're asking them, how can I get more? You know, when are you doing a mastermind? When are you doing a coaching program? When can I sign up for your workshop? Because the book leads to so much more. A lot of people will put their book up on Amazon and be like, I'm on Amazon now, what? You know, the average published author never sells more than 200 books on Amazon.
Yes.
Amazon's only 50% of the world's book sales, and they don't get global distribution. But you want to have a business plan, a business strategy around that book. What's the purpose of the book? I know you wrote this book for a purpose. You had a strategy around it. It served a purpose to attract new clients, right? To be able to charge more for coaching, consulting, and speaking. Our authors that have books, they get picked for the media interviews. Our authors that have books, they get picked for the speaking gigs.
Yeah.
They have greater client retention. They can charge more for their services. They keep their clients longer, and they get more referrals because their clients are referring them. You walk into a doctor's office, your doctor, your dentist, your chiropractor has got a book set in there. Guess what? It's going to get talked about. She's a female attorney and her book's being used as, she's retired now, but this is the book she wished she had when she was a girl coming out of law school with student debt on how to build the business side of the business. Now law firms across the country are using Charlotte Frost's book, Power at the Table, as a required reading for all their new lawyers that come to the firm. So what is the business around the book? But you're right, Ken, it's life-changing to work with the author from their napkin idea, their concept, to bringing it to market. It's like a baby being born. It's the closest thing, because you're a parent, I'm a parent. A lot of people can relate to this. It's like preparing the nursery. What's it going to look like? What's your kid going to look like? What are going to be their strengths and their personalities? And the book takes a life of its own.
I think, and I'll second everything you just said, but I'll add to it that one word we haven't really used, I don't think, unless you used it and I missed it. And that is authority. Like when you write a book, if you're an attorney, it doesn't matter what you are. You could be a daycare owner or a stay-at-home mom that's in the network marketing world, like you said. When you write a book, it literally, I don't know if this is a word, concretizes, it like cements your authority in that industry in the minds of other people, and most importantly, yourself.
Well, I want to give you a story. When I was in network marketing, the top earner for the company I was with, which was a nutraceutical company, was Sherman Unkefer. Sherman Unkefer made more off of his book and CD sales than he did off of being in the Matrix and being in the network marketing company.
Wow.
One of the top 10 publishers in the world is the publisher that works with all the network marketing companies on putting out their literature. And so you want to think about, as a business strategy, yes, it gives you credibility. Yes, it gives you authority, but it also becomes an anchor. It makes you the expert.
Yep.
When I say an anchor, it's like the anchor tenant. If you're in commercial real estate, like I'm dabbling in, you dabble in commercial real estate, you realize there's an anchor tenant. When you write a book, just like when I wrote my book, Finding the Speaker's Edge, this makes me the go-to expert on training speakers in America, how to turn your part-time passion into your full-time speaking career, finding the speaker's edge, finding your voice. How do you negotiate a contract? How much do you charge? Which speaker bureau websites do you get on? How do you turn that passion that you've launched as a hobby during the pandemic and become a full-time paid speaker that's in demand? And so we talk about it in that book. So that was an authority book, but it also has opened so many doors. The quickest way to become that expert, and you're doing this with your show and your lives and everything, the quickest way to own the stage is not 30 years of college, but it's interviewing the expert that is already the expert in your space. So even though they technically
don't tell anybody that.
I won't tell anybody.
I'm kidding. I preach that every day. Like, you're right.
Well, and traditionally you may have seen them as a competitor, because in a brick and mortar world, they're across the street, they got their shingle out, they're competing. But you know what? It's all about, in this age of social media, you can sell to people all over the world now. People can buy your stuff on every continent. But also you can cross promote. You can have JV partners. You can become business partners with people that used to be your competitors, and you can create more revenue stream with that. I was in the clubhouse the other night, and the former founder of or the owner of T-Mobile, John Legere, he's worth $300 million now. They paid him $120 million when he exited T-Mobile. He took him from number 7 to number 1.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about better service. It was about better customer service.
Yeah.
He was actually a reseller. He was selling Deutsche Telekom's towers and service, because he knew how to attract the customer. And he spent most of his time in the call centers day in and day out with the lowest ranking people in the company. That's who he loved hanging out with. And I got to tell you, when you write a book, you got to be willing to go to a book signing with 5 people, be willing to go speak on a podcast with 10 people, be willing to show up somewhere with 1 or 2 people, because if you tell your best story in front of 1, 2, or 5 or 10 people, then guess what? You won't have any problem when you get on a stage with 1,000 people.
That is so true. Brandy has a question we'll talk about in a second, but I was invited to speak at an event in Dallas in your backyard. And I had done well over 3,000 live streams at that point. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm so nervous. But then I thought, why are you nervous? Like, it's way harder to do a live stream because you can't see the reaction, the facial expressions of your audience. Like when you're doing a live stream, you can only go by what they type in the comments. At least in a live audience, you can see if what you're saying is resonating with the people that you're talking to. So I think that's amazing. So Debbie says, Michael, what is your best tip for starting the process of writing a book so it feels manageable rather than overwhelming?
Oh, that's just a great question, Brandy. I love that. And everybody should write a book, but not everybody should publish a book. Ken, I get that question a lot. It's kind of like building a house. The question is, where do you want to put your house? I mean, there's so many. You could do it in Malibu, or you can do it in the middle of Montana, right? And or Midtown Manhattan. It's going to be a big difference on the price, the strategy, the way you stage the. I'm not a builder. I'm not a contractor. Now I'm a consumer. There's Dr. Ben Gay right there.
Do you know Ben?
Yeah, Ben is awesome.
I love that guy. He's amazing.
Closers, we're bringing back the closers. So big shout out to Ben Gay the Third. He sold 5 million books. The Closers. What an epic guy.
He is.
Hey Ben, big shout out to you.
Yeah.
So there's so much that goes into building a house. I don't want to wire a house. I've already lost all my health. I don't want to lose anything else. I'm not a certified electrician. But when it comes to publishing your book, 60 to 70% of books, Brandy, are globally fiction. People love to read fiction books. That's why books like The E-Myth, Michael Gerber's The E-Myth, that's like The 1 Minute Manager, that's like Who Moved My Cheese, because these books are tied to metaphors. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Sharon Lecter. There's a metaphor embedded in the book, and even though the book is it's not fiction, it's primarily nonfiction, but it's got this thread of fiction in it where they're telling a story, a metaphor that you can relate to a story. And a lot of Malcolm Gladwell's books are like that as well. So when it comes to write your book, if it's just your memoirs, if there's not a call to action in it, it's probably not for the general public. It's probably just for you to file away with your therapist. But if there's a powerful how-to, and a takeaway that parents are searching for, my first book, Ken, was The Single Dad Survival Guide. Okay. Now I wrote the Single Dad Survival Guide 10 years after my divorce, but I realized after my divorce 22 years ago that there weren't a lot of resources for single dads, right?
Sorry. Sorry. I'm losing control over here.
Hey, it's your show. It's your show, Ken. You can laugh as much as you want to.
The comment about it should be filed away with your therapist is hilarious.
Anyway, well, one of my authors says writing your book is cheaper than therapy. So there you go.
It is very cathartic, though. It's healing.
Yeah,
no matter who you are.
Because see, writing is a muscle. It's like going to the gym, and I really feel for the younger generation that's the digital generation. I don't know how that's going to process, if that's going to bypass anything necessary in their brain or their psyche. I guess time and research will tell. But for me, if I really want to remember something or take action on something, I write it down longhand in a legal pad, because there's something for me. And I'm a child of the 70s. That's how I grew up, to remember things, but also embed them into my psyche.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say consult with some people, talk to a mentor, talk to a coach. Ken, what I wanted to give your listeners was a free consult. If they've got a book idea, I'd be happy to share my calendar, and we could bounce around some ideas. I'll give you my honest feedback.
Yeah.
I may hurt your feelings. I'm not afraid to tell you your baby looks ugly. That's why I'm called the Simon Cowell of book publishing. But listen, it's better to know before you build a $10 million house in Malibu beachfront if you're on a fault line or not.
Oh my God, that is too funny. Sandy says, good answer. So how do I not have imposter syndrome while writing it? That's
Great.
a
I
great
love this
question.
question, Sandy. I love this, and I'm so glad you asked this. I don't want you to quote anybody in your book, okay? Even if it's the great Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Ben Gay, whoever it might be, don't quote anybody in your book. Only quote yourself. So in my book, bestseller status, there's a ton of quotes in there that I coined. I coined popular quotes in there like people are the new media. Like, I don't have the book in front of me, but I could give you some of the quotes, and some of the quotes that are being used in public now that I coined 10 years ago. You don't want to quote other people. Okay, now, granted, we're all the product of our environment, our upbringing, the books we've read, the people we've met, our mentors, our coaches, and our teachers. But I want you to become the expert. And I want you to get a little bit cocky. I want you to get a little bit egocentric about your book because you have the solution the world needs. And I want you to write the book as if you're already a highly paid coach and consultant, as if you're already making $10 million a year coaching and consulting on this topic. I want you to get into that mindset. But I also want you to give me enough practicum from your real life research lab, why this works for you, how you've proved it, how it's come about, and why it's your PowerPoint and why you're qualified to speak on it. So eliminate imposter syndrome because you don't need to quote anybody else to be famous. This is your God-given download. This is what your message and your path is for the world. It may really, really suck when you first bring it out and you read it and you're like, this is awful. Or in your case, it might be great. It's always going to improve when you rewrite it and you rewrite it. Here's the thing you need to realize with a first edition book. It always could have been better. You always could have done something better. You always could have improved it. Come out with a first edition first to start getting market traction and to own those keywords. Really, publishing a book is about owning the stage early. It's about search engine optimization. It's about getting found. It's about, like Ken said, becoming an authority in a niche. And it's about you being that expert. You can always come out with the second, third, fourth editions, new and improved, additional content, updated and revised. The main thing is, hey, here's what I love. Here's a secret. A lot of our books, we launch them before there's even a single word on the inside. I could have launched this book, Finding the Speaker's Edge, and I do this a lot of times where we'll start pre-selling a book and we haven't written a single word. Because you don't have to. Once we've already bought the .com, once we've already finalized the cover and have a business plan built around the book, we know how we're going to launch it. So imposter syndrome walks out the window because now you're the authority figure, and the authority figure trumps all, because all imposter syndrome is, it's just your fear acting as an imposter, and it doesn't belong there.
So, wow, so many things. I'm sitting here wondering how many times you cringed while you were reading my book, because I think I quoted a lot of people in there, but especially Grant Cardone. I think that for me, this was me when I wrote my book. There was this burning desire that I had that was like something telling me you've got to write this. I wrote that book in 7 days, Michael, and you're like, oh, okay, now it makes sense then. But but I wrote it super, super fast because there was this thing inside of me saying, get a book out. I don't care if anybody ever buys one single copy. I'm not writing it for everybody out there. I'm writing it for me.
Writing it for you. That's the point. That's the exact point. When you're overboard in the ocean, you can actually throw yourself a lifeline. And this is what it is. The book becomes the monument. You know what? A monument in your life is, it's like when you quit drinking. It's like when you married your wife, when you had your daughters, and you're like, this is the moment in life where this moment I'm always going to remember, and I'm always going to refer back to this, because the book is that way. It's like, my life changed. My life changed when I did my first book, my 7th book. Every book I did took me up like a decade. It was like another doctoral degree added, because the thing I like most about Walls of Wisdom, Ken, is it was so raw and real, and you were just telling it, and you weren't trying to impress. You didn't pull any punches. You were so authentic. It was just.
I don't know any other way to be.
Yeah,
but I, that's something that I'm sure you do. I encourage everybody, whether they're writing a book or they're doing a live stream or they're speaking on a stage or they're doing whatever it is, be real and be authentic, because the world's seen enough BS. They also have I think our BS detectors are much, much greater today than they were even 10 years ago.
We're going into the space now, this relational economy. We're past the information age. We're into this relational age, this global age of people's BS meters, because we're sold to, this as a sales expert, the optical sensors in our eyes. I talk about it in my book, Bestseller Status, and how to write your book for your avatar. You know what? People's optical sensors are already telling them, turn it off. Don't believe it. It's a billboard. It's a sales message. But the more conversational, and I think this is why you're so successful with your lives, is because people just open up and get raw and real. And I'll do about 50 major interviews, with yours being one of my top ones this year, because you're so authentic. You know how to interview people, and you can't, when the social media was young, you could hide behind all that, and MLMers and direct sales, they were big into the baller lifestyle, showing they're on a rented yacht, somebody else's Lambo, they're taking a picture, they'll go rent a Lambo for the weekend and then drive around and shoot their course and say, sign up for my coaching program, you could get a Lambo too. People are seeing through all that stuff now, and I think just the more real we can be, just be real.
Have you watched some of my, you must have watched some of my live streams.
Yeah,
there are people that go out and rent private jets that don't leave the hangar.
Yeah,
like they pay $3,000 to spend 30 minutes in a private jet so they can do photo ops. Like that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. But it's all, the facade.
So I grew up on the farm. We were the last family to get a color television, Ken. You'll appreciate this. My parents could afford it, but they never bought anything on credit. They were always paid cash for it. Even your car, you paid cash for. But I was the youngest brother, so I was the television antenna for the black and white TV. So I had the aluminum foil, but at night when the family's watching the movie, I'm standing here and I'm like a little to the left. And so if they laughed, I laughed. So they were my entertainment. I'm just laughing. Being an antenna, thinking this is my lot in life. Someday I'll be a book publisher. It will get better.
Oh my gosh, that is too funny. So you go back to I'm curious about and if you don't want to get into detail, that's fine. But I'm always curious about somebody who is in the ministry and decides to move in a different direction.
Well, it's a great question. I ask myself that a lot, and I get a lot of people ask me that. And I knew a lot of preachers that went into business, and I never in my mind separated the two. I look at the Apostle Paul in the Bible, and he was a tent maker, but he was also a very accredited theologian who spoke multiple language. He was Hebrew, but he would address the Greeks, he would address the Romans in their native tongue, and the leaders of the day would gasp with amazement because he greeted them in their tongue, and they thought he was just a common prisoner. And so I think sometimes we try to, in our Western mindset, say this is what it looks like. You see the church, you see the people, that's where ministry's done. But I think if you go back and look at the Bible, Jesus and Paul and all those guys, they were out in the street where the people were. They were hanging out at the restaurants, the bars, and the places of commerce. They were starting business. In fact, they were there where the venture capitalists were, the startup companies, the private equity companies were.
Look who's on.
Sandra Spurgeon.
Sandra Spurgeon.
Woohoo!
I love Sandra. She's amazing.
She is epic. But
so yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But to me, I don't see a distinction. I got a friend that was a trader on Wall Street that went into the ministry. He did the Wall Street thing first, whereas I did the ministry thing first and then went into business. And so I bought and sold a couple companies, started a couple companies.
Wow.
This is my 5th company, and so I love doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I certainly wouldn't want to be counseling people in a therapist's office. That would drive me crazy.
You would be good at it, though. I think, like Well, I do that. Not in a not. I do. It's I want.
I may sarcastically tell somebody one day, well, maybe you should leave your spouse, and their lives in ruin 20 years later, and they've got me to blame or sue. They hire an attorney to sue me for what I just didn't want that much hanging in the balance. I thought, we can have a book option for a movie. Let's go to Hollywood with your book. There's not so much life and death going on with that, right?
Right. So you just decided one day I'm not gonna be in the ministry anymore. I'm gonna go into the more into the publishing world.
Well, I really agree with what Eric commented there. There's really not much difference. You're just doing it in a different location. It just looks a little bit differently. When my wife divorced me, I had a choice, Ken. I could have stayed in the ministry, but it was so funny because about a year before she served me with papers, I started reading business books. I couldn't get enough business books. So I was reading Michael Gerber. I was reading Rich Dad. I was reading Malcolm Gladwell. I was reading Who Moved My Cheese. And this just opened up a whole new door to me of, wow, you could start a business. You don't have to work for a Fortune 100 company to be wealthy. You could actually start a company and either sell it or take it public or just help a lot of people. And that could be your retirement. And I thought, wow, if you're impacting people's life, you've got a quality widget, a product or service. You can go out there, find your sweet spot in the marketplace, and it's a win-win. So we've been able to do that several times with several companies. And Ken, I wouldn't do anything different. To me, that's ministry. You see 1040 Impact. This is our nonprofit that rescues kids in Asia. We feed, clothe, and educate 186 kids a day. They've all been orphaned and they've all been rescued from human trafficking, but we're giving them a better life, and we're preparing them. So when we pulled out of Afghanistan in August, it left a huge vacuum. I don't understand what it's like as a parent to be so desperate that I'm going to sell my daughters to a sex trafficking broker. But they knew the hell that they had with the Taliban, what they could see, pray to God, was worse than what they were selling them into. At least they could get to go to Pakistan. So they said, for $200, we're going to sell you to Pakistan. We purchased those girls through our foundation. They're now in our safe house. We've gotten them medical care. We've gotten them educated. They're getting educated, fed. They have a new family now, and they're getting taught life skills like cosmetology, that as they get older, they don't have to go back into trafficking.
Wow. I just got full body chills. Full body. That is absolutely. See, okay.
And we went into the region. We had to go into the region. We had to join the chamber. So in Pakistan, we joined the chamber through our Muslim partner, because you can't join as a Christian. You have to be a Muslim. So we actually have a printing press in Pakistan that we translate books into Urdu, which is a top 10 language of the world. And we actually help people in faith and in business. And we had 2 of my authors come and speak. One of them is a board member, came and speak in April to a women's conference, thousands of women, helping these young women that didn't know it was a possibility to own your own business, start your own business, get educated, and be your own person, and live life on your terms, and not have to, if you're in an abusive situation, stay there and do as you're told.
So you've taken, and gosh, I can't even believe we've been on here 43 minutes already. you've taken your how do I word this? You're going to a different level. This isn't about that's not about money.
So I used to ask myself the question, business or ministry, business or ministry. But you know what? Something happens the first time you fly into a plane, Ken. You remember the first time you were in a plane, all of a sudden your perspective changed.
Yep.
All of a sudden you didn't see things as survive, survive, survive. You got a bigger 30,000 foot view of the world, and you began to look at the abundance. I read recently that there's enough resources in the earth's crust for every man, woman, boy, and girl, all nearly 8 billion of us, to have $14 million. We've been fighting over this thing. And so now in Pakistan, instead of dirty water, we're giving them clean water.
Wow.
We're digging water wells. So that's another thing. But you know what? Your perspective changes when you begin to read. It was the printing press that brought us out of the dark ages and brought us to Renaissance, because the printing press, the first book that rolled off of the printing press was the Bible, because the people couldn't understand the Bible in their native language. They were illiterate. They had to learn how to read, because where they were going to church, it was in a different language. They couldn't understand what God was trying to speak to them. They couldn't discover who they were in the big picture. When you realize that your life matters, you won't take a life. When you realize that your life can truly make an impact and you can get greater joy out of giving than out of taking, you'll stop stealing. You'll stop looting. You'll stop robbing. You'll start creating jobs. You'll start creating companies, and you'll start funding companies. And you're going to realize that it's all about abundance. There's more abundance out here that we could ever spend. And when you give it away, more comes.
Wow. I can't even this is unbelievable. So
Break Through Walls with Ken Walls. I think you named your show appropriately.
So quick story on that. About 4 years ago, I told my wife, I want to give back more to the world. I want to start a show. I want to interview entrepreneurs and other people, and celebrities and just get their stories about how they broke through, because there's no way they were all born into freaking success. They had to go through the crap. Yep. And she goes, that's a great idea. What are you going to call the show? And I said, I don't know, Getting Unstuck. And my wife, being the marketing genius she says, why wouldn't you use your last name and call it Breakthrough Walls?
I tell you, I know why you love her so much. She's right on.
She's so much smarter than I am. So yeah, I mean, dude,
I was going to call my show "Get Off Your Butt." So I think I need to have a conversation with your wife.
She's really good at it. But so let me ask you this, and I asked this. Sorry, there's all kinds of spam coming from YouTube, and I'm having to delete.
Yeah, I had that last time on StreamYard as well.
I never have that. It's weird. So what do you think, in your opinion? What do you think holds people back in life from a couple of things? Number one, true financial success and abundance.
Yeah.
And number two, freedom and happiness. And I got to tell you something. I think they're related. I really truly do.
Related. You can't separate them. I think.
No.
I got to tell you, growing up on a small town farm in Oklahoma, my dad was the first person in his family to go to college. Okay, my dad broke the generations for us, because with my grandfather, both of his parents passed away at an early age. He was the youngest of 9. He only had a 3rd grade education.
Wow.
But when he died, he was very wealthy. He had lots of homes. He drove me around. He showed me where all his renters lived, because he got into he sold the dairy farm. So my grandfather, who would be like 110 now, sold the dairy farm when I was young, and he got into real estate because he was trying to live in the agrarian age when the industrial age had already passed. That is the key. But I think the biggest mind block is exactly that. It's in your mind, and it's fear of what people will think. If your family is not in a good spot, I like what one of our authors, Dr. Sonia Stribling, says. She says, listen, if you didn't come from a wealthy family, let a wealthy family come from you. It's all up to you. And it's a simple decision to say, listen, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. If you're strapped financially, quit trying to impress people and live like you don't have any money, and start putting money back and quit spending money. That's the first thing you got to do. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what my spouse thinks. I don't care what I think. I'm going to stop lying to myself, and I'm going to start living like I'm royalty, because you are royalty. And you do have a responsibility. I really believe, Ken, we're talking about the spiritual here today. I think when we get to heaven, we're going to give an account to God, a bigger being, and also on what we did. And if you lived in the greatest country of the world, immigrant stories are so fascinating and amazing to me, because immigrants come here, they're more times likely to become a millionaire than people born here, because you look at our kids, they have it so easy compared to what our grandparents had. My uncle the other day was telling me the story about, granddad going through the Depression, what that was like, losing your job. Nobody could find work, but people became resourceful, and some of the greatest wealth is created. It's conceptualized and created. You got to realize, Ken, that billionaires are created so much faster now than they ever were, and millionaires. Yep. Billionaires are coming faster and faster, because it's the power of the technology coming together with all of the resources that are available globally. So first of all, don't care what people think. Make a decision that you're okay, that life's going to be hard for the next 10, 15 years. And thank God my parents did this. Thank God. I can remember my dad working for the local power company. He had the college degree. It got him a good job, but there'd be times during storms, during the winter, he'd have to go out 3 days and 3 nights, not sleep, climb poles, and put the electricity back together. Okay. Yeah. And guess what? He was willing to work hard. Mom was willing to work hard. Mom was willing to not spend. Mom was making double house payments when we were having that black and white TV, and I was being the TV antenna. Yeah. Thank you, Mom. Yeah. That now I don't have the burden of supporting my parents. Now I can start a nonprofit and travel to 30 nations to speak, and have my authors join me on 6 continents to speak, because my mom and dad worked so hard when I was young.
So I'm 53 years old, so I think we're close to the same age. And we had the tower antenna. Remember the tower antennas? Yeah. And we lived in a very tiny home growing up. And
you have a picture here in your book. Let me open it up.
Yeah. And I don't even remember the square footage. I looked it up.
1,100, I think you said.
Yeah, tiny little house. But we used to have on the left side of that picture, there was this TV tower antenna. And we would have to, back then cable didn't exist, so and there was definitely no internet, so you would go, all right, who's going out? And it's Ohio, it's not Oklahoma, so it's colder than a well digger's rear end, and who's going outside to adjust? We got to point the antenna towards the west, and you'd go out there and you're freezing and you're holding this cold pole and you're trying to turn it and it's frozen.
Oh my gosh.
Dumping, hot water down it. It was crazy. So I've been there. I know what it's like, man.
Well, you've been on the cutting edge of technology. You talk about your Commodore 64. You were always able to predict. So, I mean, building these thousands of websites or hundreds of websites that you built, you were kind of able to predict where the internet was going. And look.
Yep. Yeah. So let me ask you this, because as a recovered alcoholic, which you now know, I've got over 19 years sober, and awesome. And I'm, I think back to the times when I couldn't figure anything out for myself. And I think about the times when I literally wanted to end my life. I didn't want to live anymore. There was this moment years ago when my wife and I started our very first office. We opened our first office, and this guy that worked for me walks in. He goes, "Hey, there's a guy out in the parking lot looking in the windows of your SUV." And I'm like, "Dude, you're way bigger than I am. Go out there and kick his rear, tell him, get out of here." He's like, "Well, he's got it blocked with his tow truck." And I'm like, oh no, the bank. And so they were there to repo my car in front of my employees. And I
Oh,
can
how's that?
remember,
Oh my gosh.
oh, I remember, Michael, that day, 4 employees standing with me, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, this is as worse. My life's never, and I was sober. My life's never been this bad. And what's the point of going on? Well, if we fast forward from there to 2020, a lot of people took their lives, man. A lot of people. And it's breaks my heart. What do you say to somebody who feels like they've given it their all? They've tried everything. They cannot, um, they just can't figure out how to pull it together. Maybe they're hanging on by that last thread. What do you say to them to help them get through to the next moment?
Maybe you were that kid in that home that never got listened to, and you grew up and became an adult, and your family of origin problems you brought into your marriage and your home, and even with your kids with different problems, be it alcoholism, abuse, or whatever it was. Your life matters. It really does matter. And you need somebody to validate you. You just need somebody to talk to you. And I want you to jump on my calendar. I'll give you a free consult. I'll pray with you. I'll share with you. I'll listen to you. MichaelDButler.com. I'll give you a free consult. Just jump on for Ken's clients and Ken's listeners, because your life always matters. And listen, life hurts. People on social media, they're not putting the bad stuff. They're putting the good stuff. One of the quickest ways to get depressed is to scroll through social media. You scroll through social media, everybody's happy, everybody's sharing their good stuff. And life's not like that. Life's a roller coaster. It's filled with ups and downs. There's things you can't control. And I think what we got to do is we've got to let go of trying to control other people. Because one thing you learn in AA, and I've had my addictions over the years. One thing I've learned, Ken, is that I can't control other people. I can only control me and what I'm feeling about a situation. So ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Who's triggering me? And then realize, hey, listen, if my kids are grown, I can't change them. My spouse is who they are. I can't change them. I can't change my parents. I can only forgive others that have hurt me. And I think that's the biggest thing, Ken, because no matter who we are, if we've lived more than 3 minutes on this planet, somebody's hurt us. I was born and the doctor slapped me, right? Somebody, you got to forgive somebody, you got to forgive your mom. Why'd you keep me in there 9 days late? I was supposed to be born May the 1st and I came out May the 10th. And she was saying the same thing to me. So we had to forgive each other. Does that make me older than you, Ken, or am I younger than you?
You must be younger than me.
1968, May the 10th. I hung on. I was 9 days late.
May the 10th. So you're only 2 months older than me, man.
I'm older. I'm your elder then. So
July 17th. Gosh, now I have to respect you because you're my elder.
Well, listen, I'm excited to meet you in person. This pandemic's kept us apart too long. Yeah. I'm really grateful that our mutual friends brought us together. And, your life, you're one step away. You're just one choice away from success. And what is success is different for everybody. But for me, it was peace of mind. You talk about being in that brain fog and that brain funk when you go through a trauma or you go through something tragic like that. It does take a while. You've got to give yourself, if you break a leg, it takes a while to recover. You don't go out and run a marathon the next day. You got to put your leg up. You got to heal. You got to give your emotions time to heal. You got to forgive yourself is the biggest thing, Ken, I think. Because I'm like, dang, why didn't I start this publishing company earlier? Well, listen, I wasn't ready. The world wasn't ready. It's all about timing. And if you're listening to your heart and you're following the next step, you don't know 20 years out, but you know what to do next. And if you keep doing what to do next, you'll be exactly where you're supposed to be.
Amen. Amen. I have a question for you that's been on my mind for, I don't know, now for 30 minutes probably. Have you ever read any of Patrick Lencioni's stuff?
No, I have not.
Getting Naked. Such a phenomenal book. I don't know what it's all about, consulting and being authentic and real and transparent. And I just, for some reason, I thought that you had read it because you could write it.
I fully subscribe to the idea of just totally being transparent.
Yep.
And really getting real with yourself, right?
Yes. I love it. Listen, Michael D. Butler, you are now one of my favorite humans. I genuinely appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on and sharing. I encourage everyone to take Michael up on his offer of a free consult. I mean, that's insane. Just go over to michaeldbutler.com and is there a form on there or something?
There's a calendar link there. If you want to jump on to meetmichaeld.com, will take you straight to my calendar link, or you can click through on michaeldbutler.com to my calendar link. But Ken, I am going to send you a copy of Finding the Speaker's Edge. And actually what I'm going to do the next 5 days, I'm going to make the ebook version available for free on Amazon. So be watching your Amazon over the weekend. This is going to be free for you. If you want a digital copy, then grab it. And all I ask is if you liked it, then leave me a review and I'll say thank you.
Now, will your publisher approve of that?
Let me check. Yeah, he says it's great.
I love it. Michael, you rock, man. You absolutely rock.
Dan, I'm going to send you a stack of my books to put in your bookshelf right behind you there. So
dude, I'm gonna read the one you keep holding up. I love it, man. I'm excited about it. Michael, thank you, man. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on.
Great interview. I appreciate you for busting through walls with people, because you know what? We put those walls up to cope. Yep. And as kids for survival, right? Survival. And then they don't serve us at some point. We've got to break through. So I'm so glad that you were brave enough, courageous enough to step out. And you've got a great group of fans here and followers. And you're going live stuff is just epic. So I look forward to working with you on many levels.
Hey, you'll appreciate this. I've said many, many times, the first time I went live, I was nervous as a hooker in church.
I think we had a few of those back when I was pastoring. So. I think I checked them out. It was pre-social media, so it didn't go viral or anything.
Oh my gosh, Michael, thank you.
I wondered why the deacon on the back row kept stepping out. So we could have a lot of fun, man. So hey, Ken, thanks. Have a great day, and bless all of you guys. You're fun. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, stay with me, Michael. I'm going to end the live stream, but I want to say thank you to everybody who's watched and shared this out. And if you haven't shared it yet, there's time to redeem yourself and go ahead and share it on out. So thank you so much, Michael.